Hello, I'm Sue Butcher and this is another in our series of videos about collaborative working in construction and how we can make it better in small ways. This video is about conversations. When I first started working in architects' practices, I worked for a firm of around 10 staff, where the boss was the only person who was allowed to speak to the clients. It didn't matter that I answered the phone as part of my job, I was only ever allowed to take a message. And the reason for this was because the architect in charge of the practice had to be in control of the conversation all the time, and only him. Perhaps you've experienced something similar in your career and how frustrating it can be. Why not tell us about it in the comments? What we're talking about here is the fear that people will talk, and it affects us all one way or another. We're worried that people will talk about the project, they'll talk about our staff, they'll talk about us when we're not there. This can be a very dangerous thing because it can prevent us from doing the sensible thing, which is delegating conversations to responsible people and trusting that they'll carry them out in the right way. When we start looking at new ways of working, like for example if we're trying to implement BIM, we might be tempted to use old-fashioned traditional means of communication and conversations in order to control the situation. So for example, you might see on a BIM implementation plan that all conversations must be carried out via email and that John and Pete and Freddie all have to be copied in. Can you imagine what that would do to their inbox? I know a lot of people who never look at their emails because they're much too busy doing proper work. When construction companies first discovered social media, they also tried to control the conversation by banning social media platform use at work. Perhaps this happens in your office now. It isn't actually very uncommon even today. But there's a problem here because the companies who do this are at a commercial disadvantage. What if you're trying to find out about an area of expertise where there isn't any in-house? Social media is actually a very efficient way of doing that. What about if you want to learn about something using a series of YouTube videos? What you've got is a very frustrating and difficult rule, which is just making it more difficult for you to do your job. The fact is that people will talk. They'll talk wherever it is convenient for them to have the conversation. And they'll talk about you too. And you just have to get over that and let them get on with it. After all, anyone who got a job in construction got it because two people had a conversation about them when they weren't there. So we've just got to accept that those conversations will happen. We need people to talk. We need those conversations to happen. They are how we do our business. And if we want to control those conversations, sometimes we can just make the doing of them much more onerous and more difficult and more frustrating and less likely. Where the conversation happens doesn't actually matter as long as the right people are involved and the outcomes are properly recorded. So next time you hear yourself thinking, people will talk, perhaps you should say to yourself, people will talk. That's great. How can we make their conversations more effective? How can we encourage them to be productive? How can we capture the outcomes? So people will talk. So if you want to, why not talk to people about this video? And I hope you liked it. And if you do, tell us what you think about it in the comments below.